So the next one I have in my hands was the first Super Nintendo game I ever bought. And my brother had been bought the Super Nintendo, and he had, I think it was Yoshi and Mario and all that sort of stuff. And one day I was told, oh, do you know that there's a Star Wars game for Super Nintendo? And I was like, no, I had no idea. And we went down to the local video store one night, and my brother was like, he wanted to. My mum and my brother were like, oh, let's get a couple of games. You guys can get a couple of games you want to rent. And Super Star Wars was there, and I was like, oh, God, can I get this? Can I get Super Star Wars? And it's like, oh God, yep, okay. And it's like, yep, cool. So of course I had to share time with my brother on it. And if for those out there who've played Super Star Wars, probably back then how difficult a game it was, because there was no such thing as a save point. You had to play a game through. And I remember getting Super Star Wars, and the level I was stuck on the most was the sandcrawler. Inside the sandcrawler, because every time I got to that boss at the end, the lava pit monster, I would always fall in the lava. I was like, I get to the bottom, I'm like, oh yes, I've got there. And of course, when you died and you used all your try again turns, you had to start all over again. It was just annoying. You couldn't just jump in. You was like, oh, I've got to go to the beginning and start again. These are the days when a game like that, you clock it in a couple of hours now, I'm sure. It'd probably take 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Where if that game was set today, you'd probably clock it in about 7 to 8 hours, or even longer, depending if it was like an open world game. So Super Star Wars was a really big thing. And of course, you had to take it back to the video store. So it was quite frustrating that I didn't get to keep it. And I was like, oh, and of course, back then the games were like $30 or $40, and I was like, Mum, can you buy it? And it was like, no, that's really expensive. You can't have it. And I was like, oh. And she's like, look, you save your money up, and I might help. And one day it was a new Nintendo mag, because Nintendo magazine was coming out, and there was this article saying sequel to Super Star Wars is on the way, and it was this game. Super Empire Strikes Back, which I'm once again holding in my hand, and I still have my original Super Empire Strikes Back. So I was reading about this game, and I was so excited because, of course, Empire Strikes Back was my favorite film. And I remember seeing the Nintendo magazine and the huge spread they did when the game was released. And it had all the pictures and everything. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so much more colorful. The Hoth levels look really cool. And you get to fly the snow speeders, which I believe was the first time a game had sort of done that sort of thing. And I was just like, once again, I have to get this game. And I remember reading the article on the bus, and, once again, memories come flooding back, I was getting picked on a lot. And people were like, oh, why do you like Star Wars? Star Wars is nothing, whatever, And I was like, yeah, but no, that's not the point. It's like, I love it, and it's something I love, and people were just hammering me about it. And, it makes you feel bad. And there were points there, of course, you're trying to fit in with other people. And yeah, it sort of was a little damaging at the time, because there was a part of me wanting to give up on Star Wars and go, you know what, it's causing me a lot of heartache and grief. Every time I try to talk to someone about it, I'm judged. Sorry, this is really hard to say, but it was really hurtful, and I felt really isolated and alone. And, this, once again, it's funny how this game brings back that memory. But, I was so excited, but at the same time, I had to try and make a life choice of, do I want to make friends just for the sake of giving up something else that I truly love? And I feel I made the right choice. I chose Star Wars, of course, and I still made friends, so it didn't really matter. So I did a few jobs around the house, and I managed to scrounge together some money. And of course, I actually ended up being able to pay for it myself. And of course, but the Super Nintendo was still my brother's, so I was still competing for that time. And I think it was like one weekend I got to play it, and I put it on, and we had what's the best way? It was like a 60 centimeter TV. So of course we had a bigger television, and I remember we'd moved into a house, so we had this really big tiled floor, and we had it sitting there, and in the end it was like, nah, we'll move it. So we ended up moving the TV into a carpeted area because all we were doing was sitting on that tile floor and it was getting really uncomfortable. So we shifted it. So on one weekend, I got to sit down, and I don't think I moved from the Super Nintendo for probably about 4 or 5 hours because I really, really, really wanted to finish it. And what they had also done was they had put codes into this game where the original Super Star Wars didn't have codes, so you couldn't skip levels. Where this one, you could. You could skip the levels. And it wasn't long after, probably about 2 months later, Nintendo Magazine published all the cheat codes for easy, medium, and difficult because the internet was really non-existent in that respect in those days. It was very much in an infancy, and you couldn't readily, once again, it wasn't something that you could go, oh yeah, I'll just hop online like we do now with games, and we can go, oh, well, we can cheat this a little bit and da 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 da. We had to wait for magazines to publish this stuff, or it was word of mouth, or you had to try it yourself and go, well, I'll put 2 of these G's together in the next. And it was a 6-digit code, so there was numerous combinations. So, of course, someone has sat down and worked all this out, or they were given it from the developers. So, but the thing was, I didn't want to cheat it. I wanted to clock the game. So that weekend, when I spent 4 or 5 hours on it, I had finally got to that last level. And once again, there were some really hard moments in that game. Getting through Dagobah was painful. And of course, the Han and Chewie levels at the end, because I was so used to Luke with his lightsaber so easily killing things. And then I got to that last level, and of course, it's so open-aired when Luke's jumping from the mini platforms. Half the time, you don't even know where you're going. And I got so frustrated. And then when I got to Vader, I was like, this is it. I'm going to finish the game. And of course, he's pelting stuff left, right, and center at me and all this sort of stuff. And I've got like my mum and dad going, you need to get off this thing. You're going to be like, you got to stop. But there was that self-satisfaction because it was the first video game I had ever finished. And then, of course, once you finish it as a kid, you didn't have that mindset of, oh, I'll try another difficulty, or I want to clock it in a quick, faster time like we do nowadays. That's the big thing. It's like, well, I finished it on medium. I want to finish on the hard. I want to finish on professional. I literally finished the game. I put it down, and I never played it again. It was then a couple of years later that was sitting in my room, and I was like, you know what? I want to go back and play it. And then, of course, I thought, well, I've got... I'd kept the magazine with the cheat codes in it, and I went and found that magazine, and I pulled those codes out so I could just play certain levels again and again. And it wasn't until just, once again, the other day, I had pulled out my Wii console, and I had re-bought all the Super Star Wars games on the virtual console, and I sat Jack down, and I connected to the Wii to my TV, and I was like, I don't even know if these are going to work. And I put them on again. And Jack's like, oh, we've got to play this. 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 And I said, well, it's not a 2-player game. You're going to have to play it. And watching him and how frustrated he was when he kept falling off was exactly the same reaction I had. So it was beautiful to relive my childhood by seeing it replicated in my own lounge room, going, that's exactly how I did. And that's exactly how I acted. So, once again, how something like this can trigger such a beautiful memory. And, I remember my brother sitting there watching me so many times, and he sat there so patiently watching me play this game. And not once did he cry or scream or go, hey, because my brother's 8 years younger than I am. So you can imagine what the age he was when we had this game. But, but I did the same. I watched him play Diddy Kong and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes it was 2 players so we could play together. But he would sit there silently, and he would allow me to play it, and he would always be like, oh, Adam, come on, you can do it. So he was always sort of cheering me on, and I was very lucky. And then I had some really magical moments with my brother playing that game because he was there with me, and that's something special, and I will never forget.